Hey, friend, welcome back to the Productive Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're talking about something super practical that I know is going to save you so much time and stress. Let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever opened your Google Drive, searched for a file, knew that it existed, and still couldn't find it? Maybe it was a client document, a piece of content you plan to repurpose, or even something as simple as a standard operating procedure. And you think, where did I put that? Yep, me too. That's why in this episode, I'm teaching you how to create a simple digital filing system that actually works for you. Whether you're using Google Drive, Dropbox, your computer's hard drive, or a combination of all of these, you'll walk away with a game plan that actually helps you find anything in seconds. Because here's something I believe with my whole heart. Clarity enables momentum. And when your digital files are a mess, it slows you down before you even start. So let's clean it up, simplify it, and set you up with a system that saves your sanity without being overly complicated or trying to be perfect. So let's start here. Why does this even matter? You probably already know this, but digital clutter is real and it's sneaky. When you can't find what you need, it costs you time. But more than that, it chips away at your focus and energy. You open your laptop to start a task, but instead of writing the email or updating your sales page, you're now on a scavenger hunt through 6 folders and 2 drives, trying to locate the file that you need. That mental load is exhausting. Let me tell you about a time that I felt this in a big way. A few years ago, I had this moment that perfectly sums up the frustration of digital clutter. It was tax season, yay, and I thought I had uploaded all of my tax-related documents to Dropbox already. But when I sat down to do my taxes in TurboTax, I couldn't find last year's return, which you have to have in order to start the next year. What should have taken 2 minutes turned into a 45-minute search across every possible location: Dropbox, my hard drive, email. I eventually found the return. It was actually in the right place, but it was labeled wrong, so I didn't recognize it. Talk about a head-slapping moment. This illustrates that digital clutter isn't just annoying, it's costly. I wasted almost an hour of my day that could have been used for content creation, marketing, really anything but taxes. Before you move or rename a single file, I want you to pause and ask this question. If I needed to find this 6 months from now, where would I expect it to be? That one question will change how you organize everything. Because when you create a system that makes sense to you, your brain doesn't have to work as hard to retrieve things later. It's just like how you might label a drawer bills or craft supplies instead of miscellaneous drawer number 3. Same idea applies here. Think of yourself as a digital librarian. You're setting up categories and systems, not for perfection, but for... Let's talk logistics for a second. Where do your business files currently live? For most of us, it's a mix. Google Drive, Dropbox, maybe a few things saved to your desktop. And if you're like I used to be, and still am sometimes if I'm truthful about it, lots of random files floating around in your downloads folder. Here's the first step. Choose a home base. Pick one main location where you'll organize your business files moving forward. For me, that's Dropbox because it syncs with everything and it automatically backs up all my files in the cloud. You can use multiple drives, but try to avoid duplicating files in different systems other than for backup purposes. That's how you end up with duplicates and confusion. For example, my secondary location is Google Drive, and I use it exclusively for files that I create using Google apps like Docs or Sheets. I don't upload photos or Word docs or PDFs or anything like that to Google Drive. All of that lives in Dropbox. All right, now let's build your structure. This is the part where people get overwhelmed, but I promise it doesn't have to be complicated. Here's what I always say. Your folder system should serve you, not the other way around. If it's too complex, you won't stick with it. So let's keep it simple. Think broad categories with a few layers of subfolders, not subfolders 12 clicks deep. Here's a sample folder framework that you can steal and customize. Admin and operations. This would hold contracts, SOPs, onboarding documents, that kind of thing. Financials. This is for receipts, taxes, profit and loss reports. Products. This is for things you sell, like courses, digital products, services, coaching packages, etc. Content and marketing. This would be for blog posts, podcast episodes, social media graphics, email copy. Clients. You might not need this unless you work one-on-one with people or in small groups. And then CEO space. This is for your business vision, strategy documents, goal tracking, and journaling. Inside each of those, you can add simple subfolders as needed. For example, in products, you might have a folder for each product. Like that's what I do. I have a folder for 10X repurposing system, one for Spring Clean Your Biz Toolkit, one for Take Action Club. And in content and marketing, you could break it down by year or by platform or by content type. I break mine down by platform. So I have a subfolder for blog posts, one for podcast episodes, Instagram, YouTube. And then within those subfolders, I have a folder for each piece of content. So for example, I have a folder for each podcast episode that contains my talking points, audio files, graphics, the transcript, show notes, etc. And here's a tip. Use the exact same folder structure in your main and secondary locations. So I have the same structure in both Dropbox and Google Drive. That way I don't have to learn two different systems. I don't have to remember two different systems. Next, use naming conventions. This is one of those things that might seem small, but it makes a huge difference. And it's something I dive deep into inside one of the courses available in my membership. Because clear naming conventions are the backbone of an organized digital system. Here's the deal. Naming conventions create clarity by making everything easy to find. When you open a folder and everything is labeled clearly and consistently, there's no guesswork. You don't have to open up the file to find out what it is. That's the magic of a good naming system. It reduces clutter, it saves time, and it makes your whole business run smoother. And let's be honest, there's just something satisfying about knowing exactly where everything is. So let's break this down into 3 key principles: simplicity, consistency, and relevance. Simplicity means keeping your file names short and clear. You don't need to cram every little detail into the name. For example, instead of calling something Client Meeting Notes, August, Full Conversation, Final, just call it Client Name, Meeting Notes, 2024-08. Short, simple, and to the point. Consistency is what makes this scalable. Once you decide on a format, stick with it. That might mean always starting with the client name or the project name, followed by the type of file and maybe a date. For example, I use an acronym for all my products, like TBT for my time blocking toolkit. So every related file starts with TBT, which helps me quickly identify product-related files. For blog posts, though, I keep it simple with the keyword as the prefix. Whatever system you choose, just make it predictable. And then relevance means using terms that make sense for your business and for future you. Avoid vague terms like final, updated, or version 2. Instead, use meaningful, specific names that tell you exactly what's in the file. And if you're using dates, I recommend going with a consistent format like year, month, day, so your files stay sorted and easy to scan. Here's a quick example. Let's say you're saving a proposal for a client named Amber Smith for a new website project. Instead of website proposal final updated, call it Amber Smith dash new website proposal dash 2024-0801. Simple, relevant, and easy to find later. And trust me, I've learned this the hard way. There was a time in the past when my files were filled with names like Final V3 and Newer Final 2. It was a nightmare when I had to dig something up. Once I switched to clear, consistent names, I could find what I needed in seconds. Future me was so grateful. The key takeaway: keep it simple, consistent, and relevant. This will not only save you time, but also make your entire digital system feel more streamlined and easy to manage. Now let's talk about realistic maintenance. You don't have to fix your entire digital world in one weekend. In fact, I really recommend that you don't try to do that. What I suggest instead is this. Create a folder called To File. This becomes your temporary drop zone. Everything that doesn't have a home yet goes here, so it's not cluttering up your desktop or your active folders. Then, once a week, spend 10 to 15 minutes clearing it up. I usually do this during my admin hour on Sundays. It's quick, it's satisfying, and it keeps things from spiraling out of control. And it's a good thing to do on days when I don't want to expend a lot of energy. Another rule that I love is the 3-click rule. If you can't find something in 3 clicks, it needs to be renamed, moved, or given a better home. All right, now it's time to take action. Here's your 5-step digital filing makeover plan. 1, pick your home base. Decide whether your files will live in Google Drive, Dropbox, or your local computer. Make that your primary hub. And if you need a secondary hub like I do, decide on that and then set up a rule for which files go where. Remember, my rule is that if a file is created in a Google app, it lives in Google Drive. Everything else lives in Dropbox. 2, create your top-level folders. Use the framework I shared earlier or create your own that matches how you work. Keep it broad and intuitive. 3, choose naming conventions. Decide on a consistent file naming system. If you're not sure, just start with the project or client title and then add a short descriptor. 4, clean up one folder at a time. Don't try to tackle everything at once. Choose the area you use the most, maybe your content folder or your offers, and start there. And 5, make it a habit. Add 10 minutes of digital cleanup to your weekly admin session. That way you'll keep your To-File folder in check. And as a bonus, if you have a team or you're planning to hire help later, create a digital file guide, a standard operating procedure. It's just a simple document that explains your folder setup and your naming rules. Future you and your future VA, if applicable, will love you for it. Okay, friend, here's what I want you to take away from this. Organizing your digital world doesn't have to be overwhelming. You don't need the perfect system, you just need one that's clear and consistent. Because clarity enables momentum. And when your files are in order, your brain has more space to think, to create, and to lead. Your system should serve you, not the other way around. So build one that works for the way you think. If you loved this episode, I'd be so grateful if you'd leave a rating and review. That helps other business owners find this free content. And hey, if you want help actually implementing systems like this, come check out the Take Action Club. We have implementation weeks where we do these kinds of projects together. It's all about structure, support, and real results. Thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you soon.